Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson's virtual service for this weekend, 6/21/2020. We gathered together in a spirit of hope and determination to build a better community and world. If you're visiting us, we hope you will send us a message to let us know who you are. Welcome. My name is Tom Hiebel. I have the pleasure of serving on the board of the fellowship. There are a couple community-wide announcements that I need to make. The first is to remind all members that there is a congregational meeting coming up, and you should have received an email with an invitation to join this virtual meeting. We need to achieve a quorum, so please come and join us. As an added incentive, our interim minister, Reverend Christina, will be joining us virtually as well, and you would have the opportunity to get to at least hear her and interact with her on some level. The second announcement is that the nominating committee is beginning to look at upcoming vacancies in leadership, and there is an opportunity to become a leader within the community. If you're interested, I would contact Holly Ulrich. During these difficult times, it is hard for us to take time to concentrate on what is going on around us and be at peace. So for this brief period of time, put out the rest of the world and quietly listen to what else is happening in the world around us. Breathe in, breathe out, and be at peace. Today's opening words are from the hymnal. Their responsive reading, 602, If There Is to Be Peace, by Lao Tzu. If there's to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there's to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there's to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there's to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there's to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Today's hymn is hymn 128, For All That Is Our Life.
As we're gathered in spirit, we share together our celebrations and concerns, even though we're not physically present with one another. Today, I've been thinking a lot about the power and the importance of what it means to be a role model and mentor. My thoughts about that, of course, are inspired by the fact that this is Father's Day. And we give thanks for the fathers and father role models and nurturers who have been in our lives that have shown us the path to take, who have offered us by being role models for who we want to become. And sometimes by who we don't want to become. We know that in our community, we have people who have had very different experiences of being fathered or not fathered by their birth fathers. And yet each of us has been so fortunate to have had sometimes many men or father figures who have nurtured us along the way. And I'm very aware of how our role models and mentors inspire us to hold in our hearts the values, the morals, the ethics that we see shaping people's decisions to speak out, to march, to kneel, to say, we want a better world. And as tumultuous and painful and anger producing as these past weeks have been, those are important feelings for us to experience. The question for us is, do we have the moral fortitude to stay the course? Do we have the moral fortitude to be the role models for other young men and women who are saying, this has to stop? The violence, the loss of the lives of Black and brown people who deserve to live a full and rich, empowered life. And so on this day, when we honor fathers, let us also hold on to the reality that whether we are male or female, however we identify our gender, we've got work to do. And let us have the strength and the persistence to be discomforted by what we feel and what we see that's happening, and also to let that discomfort give us the impetus to continue both our self-exploration and also our commitment to live our beliefs in the world. We also know that in this time, particularly this past week, we've been very stressed as we've seen the figures of COVID-19 and how the behavior of people and the decisions of our government have contributed to the rise in COVID-19 cases and also the rise in deaths, the suffering of more people. And so I hope that we will commit ourselves to being safe, to honoring safe boundaries, not for ourselves necessarily, but also for those we love, and that being safe, wearing masks is saying to other people, I care about you. Your well-being is important to me. We also are aware that we're now 2 days past Juneteenth. Suddenly, this powerful holiday in the lives of Black Americans is coming to the fore, as it should have been honored and recognized for many years, over a century. And so let us continue to honor Juneteenth as a sign of hope and of liberation. And may we be people who work for liberation of the mind, body, and spirit. We also know that there are those among us who are suffering, who have friends or family who have COVID-19, who may be going through bad health or concerned with addiction that in the lockdown has gotten worse for many people. Mental health issues, depression, and anxiety. So as we hold all of these things in our hearts and minds, let us be those who can support and uphold those who are struggling right now. So for this, for our personal celebrations and concerns, let us take a few moments of silent prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, we give thanks for the beauty of the world, for the wonder and mystery that is all around us, even as we are aware that we are surrounded by suffering, by pain, by sorrow, by the wages and the suffering that racism and prejudice bring not only to those who physically suffer and emotionally suffer from racism, but also for ourselves, for the effects that racism has on those who are working to shed our ingrained prejudices. We know we have much work to do, but may we have the courage to continue to act to eradicate systemic racism in our community and in our world. Today, we're so grateful for the fathers among us, for the male role models, for the strong male role models who have helped us find a path for ourselves in life that is clear and that helps us find that which is the highest good for our lives. We give thanks for community, for family, for friends who sustain us in these uncertain times. And may we return daily to the values and beliefs that ground our lives. All this we ask in the name of that which is sacred. Amen.
Our words for reflection today come from the cartoonist, illustrator, author, and professor of art at the University of South Carolina at Columbia, Tom Feelings, who lived from 1933 to 2003. Quote, "The spirit of Juneteenth is such that if this part of our history could be told in such a way that those chains of the past, those shackles that physically bound us together against our wills could, in the telling, become spiritual links that willingly bind us together now and in the future, then that painful middle passage could become, ironically, a positive connecting line to all of us, whether living inside or outside the continent of Africa."
Happy Father's Day. Whether you're being celebrated as a father, celebrating someone as a father, or both, welcome to Father's Day. It is a good day to be here with you. It is always, of course, a joy and a privilege to be asked to be here with you. I do have to tell you, however, that I am somewhat conflicted about preaching on Father's Day. Let me tell you why. So, relationships with our mothers cover a lot of ground, right? All the way from I love you and I call you twice a day, all the way to just no. But Mother's Day, the holiday itself, is based in social action. It extends out of the Civil War and even earlier, and there's a theological and a sociological background to Mother's Day. Fathers, our relationships with our fathers cover even more ground. We go all the way from I love you and I talk to you twice a day, all the way to I don't even know who you are, or in some cases worse. Not only are our relationships with our fathers a little bit broad, and I just want to hold that out and respect that, but the holiday itself is a little bit weird. When you compare the historical aspects of Mother's Day and the historical aspects of Father's Day, I think you will see that. And I've done a little bit of research, and let me give you a couple interesting points here on this topic. Mother's Day. Mother's Day was celebrated, we know, in the Roman Empire. Mother's Day was a celebration of motherhood, and there was a goddess, to celebrate mothers and motherhood. So that god had a celebration day, and the celebration of mothers and motherhood all wrapped into that day. Fast forward a little bit to the United States, fast forward a lot to the United States, and you get about to the Civil War, when the first modern appearances of Mother's Day happened as a response to the Civil War. Shortly after the Civil War, mothers started wanting to celebrate the brutality of war and remembering the brutality of war. It sort of fizzled out after that, did Mother's Day, and then it perked back up in 1908, and it has stayed ever since. It perked up in 1908. It was recognized as a state holiday in 1910, and it was recognized as a federal legal holiday in 1914. It took 6 years for this iteration of Mother's Day to go from an idea to a federal holiday. Father's Day doesn't have the sociological backing or the theological backing that Mother's Day does. There is no Roman god of fatherhood, quite possibly because the men had everything already and they didn't need a god. I guess all the other gods were already men, a lot of them. And it just was fatherhood, and fathers just were not celebrated. The iteration of Father's Day in the United States kicked off in 1910, just a couple years after Mother's Day kicked back up again. So there you can see this sort of Father's Day being a reaction to the presence of the holiday of Mother's Day. It was recognized as a holiday first by President Lyndon Johnson in 1966 and finally made into a federal holiday in 1972 by President Nixon. 62 years between the idea and the federal holiday compared to 6 years for the idea and the federal holiday for Mother's Day. Let me give you another couple interesting tidbits. The Retail Association expects per person spending on Mother's Day to be about $94, and they expect per person spending on Father's Day to be about $54, making the average spending on Mother's Day somewhere around $25 billion and the expected spending for Father's Day somewhere around $12 billion. Hallmark, just to give you some idea of the breadth of our relationships with our mothers, Hallmark has 1,200 different Mother's Day cards and 676, as of last count, Father's Day cards. Hallmark expects us to spend $843 million on Mother's Day and $52 million on Father's Day, which is probably just evidence that most people think that their fathers don't like greeting cards, and there may be something to that. But we have the right to celebrate. We deserve to celebrate. We deserve to celebrate mothers and fathers. And what we celebrate and how we celebrate it says a lot about us. Let me give you an example. St. Valentine's Day. St. Valentine's Day is a weird holiday, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, it's one of only 2 saints' days celebrated in the United States. The other one, St. Patrick's Day, is probably even weirder. I think if St. Patrick were around today and he realized that he had become the patron saint of beer, I'm pretty sure he would have no idea how that happened. And St. Valentine's is the same. St. Valentine's Day is now considered to be the celebration of romantic love. But that was totally not true for the first 600 years of its existence. It is true for the last 800 years, but it is not true for the first 600 years. Somewhere around 1200, St. Valentine became this connection to love. And there was a conflation there with some of the old Roman gods, and some holidays got all scrambled up, and St. Valentine's Day became the day. The problem with St. Valentine's Day, and there's nothing wrong with St. Valentine's Day, but what it does is it covers up another holiday, or it covers up a remembrance that may have actually more theological, more sociological, more anthropological grounding, and therefore be maybe a better religious thing to look at. St. Valentine's Day covers up the remembrance of Executive Order 9066. Executive Order 9066 was the order given by one of my favorite presidents, President Roosevelt, FDR, that put everyone with a Japanese face in the United States, citizen or not, in jail during World War II. I think we should look into that a little bit more. I think we should remember that in a way that the Japanese Americans, mostly in California, remember it today. Another odd holiday. I'm not opposed to St. Patrick's Day. Don't get me wrong, I like St. Patrick's Day. I am not a big fan, however, of Columbus Day. You can stop that anytime you're ready. And I can talk for hours about Columbus Day. Even Memorial Day has some discomfort to it, where it seems maybe as I've gotten older to be less about celebrating the people who fought the war and more about celebrating the glory of war. Whereas when I was younger, it was more about the atrocity of war. And for Father's Day, I'm just speaking for myself personally, I could take a Father's Day off every couple of years. And I'm going to tell you why. Father's Day covers up another really important holiday. Father's Day covers up Juneteenth. Juneteenth, always June 19th. Father's Day, always the third Sunday in June. They overlap quite a bit. Juneteenth this year was 2 days ago, Friday. Juneteenth is often right around Father's Day. And because, I'm not blaming this on Father's Day, but I think because of Father's Day, that may be one reason, but because of Father's Day, a lot of people don't know about Juneteenth, especially a lot of white people. So let me explain, just give you a brief history of Juneteenth so that you're a little bit aware of it, and invite you to do your own celebrating, to do your own recognition, to do your own holding of this very important holiday. So Juneteenth happened in 1865. What had happened was that the Emancipation Proclamation had happened, but it only covered slaves in the South. And the South was not part of the United States, so they ignored the Emancipation Proclamation until the war ended in 1865. When the war ended in 1865, the Emancipation Proclamation kicked in. So people who had heard of the Emancipation Proclamation, especially slaves, knew that at the end of the war, they were free. But word didn't get to Texas because word traveled slowly in those days. So it took 2 months. It took between April and June for word to actually get to Texas. It also took a military force to come, because I'm sure that someone in Texas knew that the slaves had been free. But there was also these rumors that that the planters wanted another harvest out of the slaves. The cotton harvest was happening about the same time. So Juneteenth was a commemoration of what is the very last slaves in the South. Slaves in the North were not freed till a lot later. Slaves in the South were freed. 250,000 of them were freed on Juneteenth, June 19th, 1865. The first formal celebration of Juneteenth happened 1 year later, in 1866, and it became a legal holiday in the state of Texas in 1938. So it took 1 year to be recognized as a holiday, and it took 73 years to be recognized as a state holiday. It is still not a federal holiday. There are still 2 states that do not recognize it at all. But it is a transformational holiday in the world of the United States, in the history of the United States. And I think, especially in light of what's going on today, engaging the holiday can do us a lot of good. Now, you may ask, how do I celebrate Juneteenth? I don't have any connection to Juneteenth. My family wasn't even in the United States at that time. How do I celebrate this? Well, I think you celebrate it the way you celebrate anything else, with reverence. We know about several holidays that we're not quite sure what they mean, but we're still able to hold them. We're able to listen. We're able to witness. In this case, we're able to acknowledge the pain that we hear in the history. We're able to hear the history, a much more detailed history of the thumbnail I just gave you. But most importantly, we can go with the flow on the history. Wherever the flow is going, this is not a time for especially white Americans to be yah-butting the holiday, the premise behind the holiday. This is, as Unitarian Universalists, our religious imperative, to be both in the world and of the world, to be part of the world, and yet at sometimes to step back and watch the world happen and understand what it means to be and to have an experience of being someone else in your community, right here in your own community. So as we prepare to engage ourselves as Unitarian Universalists, if you so choose. Now, Juneteenth this year was 2 days ago. It was Friday, so we kind of missed it. But maybe next year when Father's Day comes along and we can engage the world, let us step back for a minute and engage it as both part of it and apart from it, watching it, observing it, learning from it, and yet letting it sink into us. Let us engage the world as we are asked to do. And right now, I ask you to join with us and sing, or I don't know whether you sing or hum at home these days. It's a little bit different. But let's sing or hum or tap our fingers or whatever you want to do to our hymn. Hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
Today's hymn is hymn 318, We Would Be One. And as I was reflecting on how to announce this hymn, it occurred to me that first of all, some of us may not have our hymnals at home. Although every good Unitarian should have a hymnal with them at all times. I also reflected on the scene in Gandhi where he was explaining to the New York Times reporter that when he was young, he sang the songs in temple without really understanding the words until now. So I thought it'd be useful to read the words to you and then ask you to join us in singing. We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one, we pledge ourselves to greater service. With love and justice, strive to make us free. Please, if you do have your hymnals, join us in singing hymn 318.
Our closing words and our benediction this morning come from former U.S. President Barack Obama. This was a statement issued on Juneteenth 2015, and had there been a video of it, I would have played it for you, but there is no video of it, so I'm just going to read it for you. It's titled, "Tomorrow is a Day to Keep Marching." He says, Juneteenth has never been a celebration of victory or an acceptance of the way things are. Instead, it's a celebration of progress. It's an affirmation that despite the most painful parts of our history, things do get better. America can change. So, no matter our color or our creed, no matter where we come from or who we love, today is a day to find joy in the face of sorrow, to count our blessings, and to hold the ones we love a little closer. And tomorrow is a day to keep marching. May it be so. Happy Father's Day and blessed Juneteenth.